The following is a darshan given by Hridayananda Das Goswami on February 13th, 1990 in London, England.
It's a fact that definitely, by Prabhupada's mercy, this knowledge is being distributed. But in this, it's also Prabhupada that says that one should accept the spiritual master. So if Prabhupada says that, then that means there must be some benefit. Otherwise, why would he say it?
But you see, I've seen people take initiation and they get their name Das,
Yeah.
three strands of beads, and they just seem to have the same authority as before. They work under the same type of person, the same service. I don't really see what benefit they actually get. From that point, from a material point of view.
Well, even if one takes initiation, it depends on how one serves the spiritual master or how faithful one is. Because there are many Prabhupada initiated, many people that went away. So I think it's correct to say that it's not just the ceremony of initiation. The ceremony becomes significant if one actually carries out the spirit of it. So I don't think you can say that no one is more advanced than you.
Oh, no, it's...
Yeah, so, but then that means someone is more, and the people that are more advanced than you have been initiated.
What, they haven't...
The people that are more advanced than you have been initiated.
Yeah.
So there is spiritual advancement because otherwise it becomes impersonal. In the sense that I have knowledge, but the knowledge is that I am meant to serve. You see, so if one doesn't feel that desire to serve, then he has jnana, but vijnana is not so strong. When the vijnana becomes strong, in other words, realization, yes, I really am meant to serve, that's what I'm meant for. Then one wants to serve other Vaishnavas, and one wants to serve Prabhupada. And so if Prabhupada has presented that we do like this and like that, then one becomes enthusiastic to do it because he wants to serve. Otherwise, if that enthusiasm is not there for service to carry out the orders, then it means that the knowledge has not been so much realized. So there are people that take initiation, but that may not appreciate it fully, or may not take advantage of it fully. And sometimes they go away. That happens all the time. But, so if someone, let's say, wasn't initiated, or someone was initiated and didn't take it so seriously, then their position may be somewhat similar.
One final question. Where does it say in the Vedas that the guru takes the karma of the disciple? Where does it say in Sanskrit rising?
Sanskrit,
just someone asked me because there should be the checks and balances. Guru Sarvashastra. I know Prabhupada says that, and I just wondered where have you ever come across, in Devanagari Sanskrit that it says.
Yeah. There's a statement by H.D.Goswami that by diksha, that by initiation, one actually becomes Dvija and one is reborn. So then, there's many verses explaining what that means, but Dvija, to mean one is reborn, means he has his new life. His old life, his karma is finished. And also Krishna explains it by devotional service. And you see, all the statements about devotional service also apply to, of course, you're engaged in devotional service, but when one takes initiation, one formally commits oneself. It's like a formal contract with Krishna. And so there are many statements explaining how one's karma is burnt up, like the statement, karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajana. Krishna burns up the karma of one who takes to his devotional service. It specifically says Krishna burns up the karma in that verse. Karmani nirdahati. And there are many statements like that. And then Sanatana Goswami says that it's by diksha that one actually becomes Dvija. By initiation that one actually is born again. So right now you sort of have like it's like the introductory offer, It's just like, for example, sometimes they want to sell cars, so the company will say, take it home and drive it for a week. So even though you may say, well, why should I buy it? This person's paying all the money and he bought it, and I didn't, and I'm also driving a car. You see? Yeah, so that's more or less your position. And because there were difficulties, with getting all these things in order within ISKCON, which I think now is working much better. It's actually more is working nicely now. So therefore, Krishna probably extended the trial period for people. You know what I mean? It's almost like I say, a car had some trouble in the past, so now the factory's finally figured out how to build it right. But they give people, say, like a month free trial now just to get that confidence, So, I mean, just to be very practical to some extent, that's also there. That there was some problem of credibility because there were some bugs, in the design or something. But now things seem to be working nicely, and things are going on pretty normally now. Things are working, so it seems like we really did kind of figure out what was wrong and rectify it. So now I think eventually, you do have to. It's just as in the scriptures. I mean, it's not that the gurus, we collect disciples. It's like some people make money, some people collect disciples, some people collect postage stamps. It's not just like a competition so you can collect more disciples. But because the scriptures say that, because Prabhupada says it, so it seems like it's something we have to do. And if we don't, it seems like it's a very important area in which we really just haven't taken Prabhupada that seriously. In the Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami points out that of all the important principles of devotional service, really the most important begin with accepting a spiritual master. So it shouldn't be done blindly. It shouldn't just be like an emotional, fanatical thing. But it means you're accepting a teacher. And it does actually require a bit more surrender. It requires a bit more humility. And those things are all to our advantage. Granted that we remember that we're surrendering to the Guru as a representative of Krishna, not just as, which personality cult am I going to join? It's not like that. Yeah, if it's on that level, which personality cult am I going to join? And then what if I join a personality cult and the personality, is not so hot? It's not like that. It's not joining a personality cult. It's just finding someone who's bona fide and then taking some instruction within the context of ISKCON, and the Guru's bona fide by faithfully following Prabhupada. So all these things are to be tested.
Yeah, it's very simple at heart. I feel very satisfied to think that, like what you said, I just follow someone who's following faithfully. And I get so many, I've been reading VVR and I have suddenly beginning to think like that.
Well, that's the problem. Yeah, the VVR is...
I don't know how I should feel towards a girl. I mean, it's like I feel very kind of sentimental personality. Some personalities I like a lot, and some...
Yeah, you should like the personality.
It's fun. I just like...
A gente vai preparar para sair do filme agora.
Já tinha que estar listo, pronto.
Yeah. Você queria alguma coisa especial?
Já expliquei várias vezes. Derguna.
Isso é interessante.
Já expliquei várias vezes.
Segura esse aqui.
Esses frutinhos são...
Sim, são frutos.
Aí pode levar e já tudo de volta.
É, tudo
Já
pronto.
expliquei várias vezes.
Por quê?
It's alright for a couple of minutes.
Yeah. I don't... Go ahead.
We hear that the relationship between the disciple and the guru is eternal.
It's what?
Eternal.
Yeah, but it's, in a sense, all of us have an eternal relationship. Prabhupada said it's just, a big family, and in the spiritual world, it'll continue to be a family, so...
The question was, I was wondering if it's eternal and it means forever into the past as well as the future. Is it
I don't think necessarily like that. I think eternal means that it moves on to the spiritual platform, where our sense of eternal means, our sense of eternal is that, in other words, that means if I accept a guru, it means actually somehow or other he was my guru, when Queen Victoria was in office. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Saraj.
Hare Bo. Sings nicely.
Coffee and
Hare Bo. Your name again was?
Quick one.
Oh yes. I unfortunately don't have any power to do that.
My name is Bob.
Bob.
Bob's brother is a Sanskrit teacher.
Really?
At Concordian in Montreal.
In Montreal?
Montreal.
Oh, you're also from Montreal?
No, I'm from here.
So he was happy to hear that you were analysing the scholars the way that you did. Because he gets letters from his brother
Oh really?
dissecting Krishna consciousness and
But it's
teaching
like,
the-
sometimes it's like the scientists that dissect a creature and kill it in the process of, so they don't really understand it because they actually kill it in the process of analyzing it.
I mean, his whole outlook, he's put into perspective by one story that he told me where he had a scholar. I'm not sure if this was in Montreal or in Indiana. But anyway, they were working on a verse from the Gita and going through it, syllable by syllable, word for word. What does it mean? And at the end of it, I said to the guy, okay, so that's what it means. Now, do you understand? He goes, well, I understand, but what does it really mean? What's the meaning of it? I said, that's what it means. We just worked it out. He said, yeah, I know the words, but what does it mean?
Who was saying, what does it mean?
Yeah.
He was?
His student.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I don't know. Go take a course on theology. So,
But you see, if you know the Gita, the Sanskrit language of the Gita, you can't just understand the Gita from the dictionary because the words are too rich. You see, you can't, to say that, well, I just, this is what it says in the dictionary. First of all, that's very misleading. I think anyone that says that really is not a very good Sanskrit scholar. Because the language is so rich that you have to make decisions.
he will never do that.
What?
He will tell you what 6 different types of people draw from that.
Well, then what you could...
But he won't say what he himself does.
Well, then all you could do then is, but then you're not really, then you don't know, exactly, then you don't know what it means. You just say that this word means these 12 things, this word means these 6 things, and how do they combine? There's 40 ways in which they combine. So the Rama verse, and ultimately, who needs a teacher? Then you just buy a Sanskrit dictionary. So it's a fact that they actually create confusion. They take a verse which does have an obvious meaning in the context. And what they do by presenting all that apparent diversity is, they're really, you see, underneath an apparently simple act of, well, I'm just, this word means this, and that means this, and that. And it appears they're just engaged in an innocent, almost, librarian type activity. But what they're really doing is propagating a very specific and ultimately materialistic philosophy, which is relativism. You see, that's interesting. You see, these people, they say they're doing something, but then you have to take a good look and see, well, what are they really doing, though? And what is underlying this attempt? Why are they doing this and not something else? Well, because they believe in what they're doing. So what are the other beliefs that are associated with this belief? And then you really start to analyze it. You find that they're just propagating a philosophy that Krishna is not God, or that if Krishna is God, it's just like that. Who was it, that ancient Greek philosopher that said that the truth cannot be known? No, that there is no truth, and even if there is a truth, it cannot be known with certainty. You see, but then as the cliche goes, then you say to that person, well, do you know that with certainty? So, and by asking that simple question, do you know that with certainty? What you do is reveal that that the person is committed to a definite philosophy. They're not just. In other words, everyone. It's like a very self-centered notion where I'm just the innocent, neutral, objective observer, which is of course extremely self-flattering.
That's exactly what he says.
Well, I would say to such a person that it's a very flattering picture, because to be objective is really a pretty exalted status to be. If you really think of what it means to be objective.
And that's what Atmananda said. He said he's obviously so proud. It doesn't come across that way, but that must be so, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, to attribute to oneself objectivity is, I have no preference for any type
That's right.
of truth. But is that really true? In other words, is it that one would be equally happy to bow down to a supreme God and just surrender to that God, that one would be perfectly happy with that option? Most scholars would not be perfectly happy with it. So to say that I have no, it's like saying I'm a saint. I have no attachments.
Yeah.
I have no attachments. I have no personal motives or desires. I mean, it's really attributing to oneself a lot. Most people really couldn't say that I have no personal desires or motives or attachments. I have no faith. Because knowledge, the idea that knowledge comes by non-commitment is also a very specific philosophy. If you say that if I commit myself to this or this branch of Hinduism, as they might see it, then by that commitment, I've lost my objectivity. Objectivity depends on standing aloof. But you see, that type of objectivity is based on a belief that none of these actually will lead me to the highest truth. And that belief must come first. Because you see, it must be a prior belief, because if in fact, let's say Krishna consciousness is the truth, then it's commitment that makes one objective, not non-commitment. Because he would say that you should be committed to the academic perspective if you actually want to understand.
No, actually, it doesn't say that. In fact, you see, my concern is that what a wonderful devotee he would be if somebody pushed the right button, because he has knowledge of all of the Vedas, of all the philosophies. Steve will explain karma to me in a way that I've never heard it explained. He will tell me all about Krishna consciousness, right way back to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he will say that it's right, they are the most right of everything that he's studied and heard. He's written letters on that, but they had a problem in Ireland some years ago.
Oh, that's nice.
Well,
then he must be a nice person,
and
but
he
still.
wrote to them and saying, look, these are bona fide people, they're not a lot of cranks. So what concerns me is not that he doesn't say, that's all mumbo jumbo, that's rubbish, I'm doing it right. He's not saying that at all. He's simply saying, I understand all of these things. These are all the meanings, and there's all his meanings and his meanings and his meanings and his meanings. Me, I don't feel compelled to believe anything. And he's almost in a way that he said one time, I couldn't get into any one
That's what you're talking about,
because I would compromise my position.
But then, but that position, what is the authority of that position? You see, it's also the belief that this position is somehow authoritative. Anyway, it really comes down to faith. Although they would like to say it's a logical decision, it's really not. It does come down to faith, because you just don't believe. So they just, it's like a lack of faith. It's not that position is more reasonable. There's nothing more reasonable about it. Because as I said, if Krishna is God, then non-commitment means one loses one's objectivity. To be objective doesn't just mean to rattle off some data about something. That's objective on one level. But cognition doesn't simply consist of learning facts, but it also consists of really deeply understanding and experiencing things. Objective on what level? I mean, just objective in the level of reciting facts, or objective in the level of objectively experiencing the world? You see? Because the world isn't just... So it's a complex. Sounds like a nice person. I recommend Prasadam also.
Sorry?
Give him a lot of Prasadam.
Yeah, we gave him prasadam at my house, and he not only understood about it, but gave me a lecture on it.
He's also a Brit?
Yeah. Maybe that's his problem.
He teaches Sanskrit at what school?
Well, he's at Concordia
Oh, Concordia.
in Montreal at the moment, but he was in Indiana. And I've forgotten the name of the university.
Purdue? University of Indiana, Notre Dame?
Before that, he was at Oxford. He was at Oxford for most of his time. And really, I wonder how to expose him to Krishna conscious people who can speak to him on it at his level. You know, I mean that as a lower level rather than a higher level. It's purely mundane.
Well,
I've encouraged him to go to the centre. Whether he has or not, I don't know. He's not antagonistic towards it itself.
right. No, it sounds like he's a nice person.
Just
I feel bad when the one has prasadam.
We're getting Krishna. You were saying that they've progressed from useless myths to useful myths.
Yeah.
And is that an ongoing progression? Will it someday be useful facts?
I think so. Yeah, to keep preaching, keep distributing prasadam. Why don't you all take one of these? I'm not going to take these anyway, so you distribute those. Tem um pouco de iogurte?
Yogurt?
When I was in India, I met one of the Shankaracharya sannyasis. He told me that a scholar had been over and had done some sort of paper showing through some system of science based on how languages progress and how people learn language. That she had written a very nice description of how Sanskrit could not really have developed in the system by the way other languages develop. You know, starting off from primitive grunts and working on upwards through tenses and everything. It was more or less
The one that got away.
more or less showing that Sanskrit had no mundane origin.
That's interesting. Who wrote that?
I don't know. She was from America. And she'd also written in about how the work that they're doing on artificial intelligence and Sanskrit was a very good way of communication of computers. Have you done any reading about that? Have you done any reading about that?
Not so much.
Because it sounds a very interesting sort of thing. If you can show that, if you have something to show how scientifically worked out Sanskrit is, it also helps to establish the fact that it's superior to other languages in different ways. And therefore, the origins should.
I'm losing everything today. Need some therapy. Need some therapy. Interesting. Some people go down to the beach and lift weights, to get big muscles in their arms. Some people want big muscles in their head. Isn't it? It's just another form of, acquiring material powers of the mind.
And it has no special significance that some people want to study Indian religions.
Well,
I mean, it's not they're especially drawn
There's
as
there-
spiritual attraction to.
they may be attracted, but many scholars end up in fields they don't really like that much. It's very common there. a professor who's a leading authority in the Habsburg Empire. After so many years, he said, "I wish I never had met the bums." So, it's another attempt to enjoy this world. Isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting actually. That I've always seen him as a pretty humble sort of a guy, pretty quiet.
Well,
He
probably is, but
the reality is that he must actually, he's trying to absorb it by having all of that knowledge, and being able to give it to other people.
it's yeah, humble. I mean, it's just people have different ways in which they try to enjoy this world. Some people try to enjoy it by being athletes, or by making money, or by being great scholars. There's different ways in which people try to.
Right, and there's a false humility, isn't there, as well?
A what?
False humility.
Yeah, well, real humility comes when one becomes humble before God.
That's right. When you understand who you are, there's a way of being humble that just means I want you to like me.
What?
There's a way of being humble that really translates as I want you to see what a wonderful person I am. I have all this knowledge, and yet I'm acting like this.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yeah, so wanting a lot of knowledge is another way in which people try to enjoy this world. So it's like having a brother who's addicted to that, or having a brother who's, addicted to something else. Maybe someone has a brother that just can't, just wants to play golf all day. So there's just different ways in which people try to enjoy this world. But if one has all that knowledge but does not surrender to God, then what is the use of it? It's just you're memorizing this, memorizing that. No conclusion. That's more or less it.
Yeah.
When someone is too attached to mundane learning, then it just becomes another attachment. And the idea of serving God seems less compelling than the idea of becoming oneself a great scholar. So that merely having information on something becomes a type of power over it.
Yeah, sure.
Like you're taking prashadam, oh, that's this, that's that, and this, and everything. As if that were meaningful. Because why would someone speak something thinking it's not meaningful? And if they don't believe it's really true, why speak it? It's somehow, the academic mood is somehow that, because I've read a book on this and I know what you think it is, therefore somehow you believe it and I just know about it and don't believe it, so somehow I have like a superior vantage point. Because you're being committed to it, you can't really understand it.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's exactly the way it is.
Yeah. The idea of being a commitment to something, you lose your power to really... It's like, yeah, Krishna is just one thing, there's so many other things. If you become absorbed in one little thing, you lose the big picture. So what they're saying, the big picture is not Krishna. But if the big picture is Krishna, then what you call the big picture is really just a complete distortion. That's the real issue. What is the big picture? Is it that the whole academic scene is just a little dot, just one little point within God's creation? Or is God just one little point within the academic creation? That's the point. Isn't it?
Which is relevant to him saying, if I follow any one particular form of belief, then I can't be objective and I can't teach properly.
But yeah,
exactly what he's saying.
in other words, I have to follow the one belief, which is to be academic.
Yeah.
Because he's certainly following that belief. He walks and talks like one. So they're saying the same thing we are, that there is one ultimate faith, and if you have that faith and carry it out, then it gives you the whole picture. But we say yes, and that faith is in Krishna. They say no, that faith is in academics. But they bring to academics the same faith and zeal that we bring to Krishna. That that academics is the way, the truth, and the light. And so, because whatever is the true path, you have to commit to it. If academics is the way to be objective, you have to commit to that. You've got to read the books, you've got to go through it. Isn't it? So it's really a dispute over what's the path. It's not a sense some like commitment versus non-commitment. It's which commitment. It's like Prabhupada said to Professor Katofsky, you worship Lenin, we worship Krishna. So, when you choose a particular path, it also reveals your concept of the nature of the world. Whereas if academics really gives you the most clearest picture of things, what does that say about the nature of reality? You have to see that. You follow? So he has faith in that, and we have faith in this. But I would say they more or less have blind faith. I would say they have blind faith much more than us because we're very upfront about what we're doing. Whereas they're more covert. They talk about objective, but behind it all, there's a whole belief system, which they don't really articulate openly.
Which is what?
Relativism, the primacy of human intelligence, humanism, relativism.
The higher the position you have in that particular academic field, the more right you must be.
The more divine you are.
Yeah.
An ultimate divinity is what, chairman of the department or Nobel Prize for literature, whatever, philosophy, whatever. That's when you become like a full incarnation. Yeah, Krishna says in the Gita that everyone has a belief system. It just depends on which one it is. People and sentimental, subjective people, and the rational, objective people, of course, are scholars, and the sentimental people are, the true believers. So this derisive image, or this derisive term used derisively, that the true believers, some of those people that just didn't have the wherewithal, didn't have the intellectual stamina and ability, lack the complexity and the whatever to be academic or to be a scholar. Instead, they just kind of cave in to the pressures of life and then grab onto a myth. It's a very it's a very comical notion they have. It's one that's extremely self-flattering. You think about it, because they actually see themselves as towering above the average mind, isn't it? Towering above them, that the heights of objectivity.
They're measuring that against this arbitrary line, aren't they?
Against what?
They're measuring that objectivity by some arbitrary line.
Yes, arbitrary line. It's based on a belief system. They're objective, but objectivity is taken in a very superficial, practically trivial sense. It means, and it's also very self-deluding because you say, well, objectivity means not to commit to anything, but you have to commit to that mode of thinking. And if you don't, then you're just like, then the whole thing just becomes, it gets into the realm of absurdity. If you say, well, I remain objective by just reading books about different things or analyzing, I don't commit to any path, but of course I don't even believe in what I'm doing, then it just becomes absurd. There's even like a lack of sincerity on the part of the person. Just like, what does he, what does he believe? But even then there's some other belief he has which leads him not even to commit to non-commitment. But there's always something he's committed to, because he's active, because he's doing something, because everyone is. Unless someone is just completely insane, in which case they've committed to insanity. And if someone is not completely insane, then they're committed to some belief system. Everyone is committed to a belief system. Now the question is it true? So therefore, saying that, there may be some people that actually are just completely mindless. They don't think about anything except what game is on TV today, and reading about the latest lurid scandal on the cheap newspapers. Then some people are just like animals, but then even animals, they have their logic. The point is, who has the real starting point? Where is the real place to start? Should you start by accepting Krishna or by having faith in God? Or should you have faith in something else? So what argument is that? So when I say I have faith in my senses, but that faith in your senses, everyone really, not as well, I don't want to say everyone, but I say most people, almost everyone, has faith in their senses. We have faith in our senses. For example, they brought me this plate of food. I believed it was really a plate of food. And when I saw a banana, I believed it was really a banana and put it in my mouth. And it could have been the most deadly poison, which was just disguised as a banana. Or maybe it was the man in the moon, who assumed the form of a banana slice. But, no, I just thought it was a banana. So, to say that one has faith in the senses doesn't really distinguish one from other people. If you say you have exclusive faith in your senses, even that is not really such a meaningful statement, because as Kant pointed out, there are different concepts in the mind that we use to organize sense experience. Sometimes we don't just see objects, but we have a sense of what they mean, what their purpose is. Like you're looking at a room right now, isn't it? It's like the concept of a room. And we have a concept of living in certain ways. Human beings generally live in rooms. And so therefore, although right now I can see all kinds of different colors and shapes, but I put it all together, I synthesize all that information, and it's a room. So, the very fact that I put all that together is a room. And similarly, concepts of what my duty is, what I should do. Because even if you just get sense experience, then what should you do? What should you not do? Because everyone does things, and everyone doesn't do other things. And therefore, everyone, unless they're just like a complete robot or driven by, completely, unless someone is just completely mindless or whatever, but the average person has a sense of what his duty is and what his duty isn't. Isn't it? And that's based on certain values. So to say someone only relies on their senses, but even reliance implies some higher purpose. Because even to say, I rely on my senses, but you rely on them for what? I rely on my senses to get knowledge. Oh, but you want knowledge. So it's not just sense information, there's the concept of knowledge. In addition, over and above mere sensory experience. So I mean, people have purposes, people hold values, people have beliefs. These are universal elements. These things aren't true in one case, not true in another. Those are universal elements in many different ways of thinking. So, what is the basis for our faith and what ultimately will lead us to the highest knowledge? Those things have to be discussed. You follow?
Are you doing any writing along these lines?
Not so much. Maybe I should someday. I'd like to. I was working on Mahabharata.
You're still working on it?
Yeah, we finished the translation of the first canto of the early part of it.
What happened to your dialectic?
That's a good question. Go to the lost and found. I was working on different projects and it became a little too much to work on so many things, so I chose to work on the Mahabharata. That would be useful.
You think it'd be more useful than
Philosophy? It's a good question. I guess for different people, as I say, different slopes for different folks. It depends on, I guess people have different temperaments. What happened to that train conductor? Still trying to figure out where he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the philosophy book would, also for other people, be very useful. And I should try to work on that. It comes up a lot of lectures and things like that we discuss it. But as far as formally setting it down, I haven't really.
What comes up in lectures?
Oh, philosophical points. Epistemology.
It would be very useful to have one book that answered all the different presentations that academics make. We have Sadhguru on the scientific side. There's a lot of other stuff going on that, if answered, would give a great deal of credence to ISKCON in different parts of the world, where perhaps devotees don't have access to devotee scholars.
What types of points do you think?
Things we've been discussing, how merely being academic isn't really objective. This discussion we've had. Also, an expansion of the historical validation of Krishna consciousness. Continuation of what was presented in readings of Vedic literature. Because we have sort of people in this country that I've been dealing with, that are scholarly, if not scholars, and they reach a certain point, their interest in Krishna consciousness develops, and then they sort of seem to think that we have a very simplistic view on the history of the belief system that we've embraced. Everything sort of popped out of somewhere 5,000 years ago. It all came at the same time.
Well, no, it was there. Krishna was born into substantially a Vedic culture, which has been going on for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And also Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is a point at which we can, give some for them, very tangible historical references.
Well, the Prabhupada talks about a so-called Hindu golden age, meaning the Vedic age, whereas when they say Vedic age, they don't mean what we say at all.
Well, first of all, that chronology, as I think Satsu pointed out, is very speculative on their part. And actually, all the ancient writers talk about a golden age, whether it's Homer or Hesiod, or they all do, or other traditions. So, what?
Just
In the West, the earliest thing we have is the Iliad and the Odyssey. So the earliest literature we have is a sort of a very highly developed art form. Iliad and the Odyssey are not primitive works; they're actually it's highly developed literature.
Mm.
And so you don't see that, in other words, you don't. It's like you don't find missing links in paleontology. You don't find the literary missing links either. It's not that you find some crude attempts at symbolic communication and then gradually words developing and then you don't. I mean, that's all theoretical. You don't find any of that. What you find is you just find complete, highly developed literature that starts there. So what I would tell people is just that, before 3,000 years ago, it's prehistory. It's not, even 3,000 years ago is a very generous, liberal thing. So therefore, I would say that if you want to nail everything down to, Western type of documentation, then you can't go back very far. And then what you have to do is you almost have to dogmatically assert that, well, that's when it really starts. You have to assert that just, almost in the interests of, just to avoid admitting that there's a lot of stuff you don't know, and you can't know. So really you have no other source except the Vedic literature. It's just like Prabhupada says, if you want to know who your father is, you have to ask your mother. There's no other source. So in the same way, if you want to know about the history, ancient history, you have to accept Vedic literature because you have no other alternative. I mean, it's stupid to take a bunch of, arrow tips, arrowheads, and, some pictures and caves, and then, tell it the world, the whole history of man. I mean, there's something very unscrupulous about that. I mean, there's definitely something very unscrupulous about the way they go about reconstructing the history of humanity. It's very unscrupulous. They actually don't know. So it's not that we're, contradicting a very sound. It's not they have a very sound history and we're just going against it. What we're doing is exposing their bluff. They actually don't know. So, and even, they just don't know.
Is it necessary, Maharaj, to have that proof? I mean, whether...
It depends on the person. I mean, when you say necessary, actually there's nothing necessary except chant Hare Krishna. But as far as, people have necessities, just like some, like how much do you have to eat? Well, it depends on the person. Each person eats a different way. So necessity it's a personal necessity. There are some people that, have certain needs, other people have other needs. But I think we should try to reduce our material needs. So ultimately we should just be able to chant Hare Krishna, and that's the real point.
There's a discussion about whether it's truth, whether it's useless myth, or whether it's useful myth. It seems to me not to be terribly relevant. If you accept essential truth, which is logical anyway, does it actually matter if it's all myth or a little bit myth or all truth?
But one has to know the highest truth. And like the plane, I took a plane here, so it arrived in London. So it may not have been a perfect flight, there may have been, but it's here. It got here basically, and I got here healthy, so what? The fact that there was some little trouble on the way, or this or that happened, or the pilot may not have done this or that perfectly, but we're here.
What I'm asking you is that I don't really feel the need to be convinced that all of the different stories are actually true and actually happened. It doesn't seem to matter to me. Is that bad?
Not necessarily. I personally believe the stories, or I know that the stories are true, There's some stories, of course, like Puranjana with this or that, are meant to be told as fiction. But one should be satisfied with Krishna. And Krishna can do anything. So knowing about Krishna, that's the real point. Krishna Jiva Ji Savara Chatur. If one surrenders to Krishna, worships Krishna, then he's the most intelligent.
Is it okay to do that without necessarily knowing and accepting all of those stories as being absolutely true and they actually happen? It seems to me that that's not really the important part of it.
Well,
So
believing that Krishna is great and that Krishna can perform such things, it's also...
Yeah. Well, I think that's my point. That as Krishna can do anything,
Yes.
then whether a particular story is true or not doesn't seem to matter.
Krishna can do whatever he
People
likes.
get involved in arguments about is this true or is this not true, is this true or is it not?
Well,
Surely the important thing is that...
Yeah, we are preaching. We're trying to convince people to take to Krishna consciousness, and then sometimes so-called scholars will try to nullify our preaching by saying, "Oh, they say this, but the real fact is." And so, therefore, we have to defend Krishna's interest. We feel that we have to defend Krishna's interest. We have to spread Krishna's movement because it's his desire, and it's the best thing for everyone. So just as one is concerned with the well-being of one's family, so it's natural to be concerned about the well-being of this missionary work.
Maybe I haven't got that far. That's next. It's rather selfish.
Thank you very much, Marge.
Thank you for your time.
Hare Krishna. Atheism, if you really think about it. Because if I blame someone else for my suffering, it means there's not a supreme God who is just and omniscient. So practically, it's a rejection of God to blame others for my troubles. And conversely, the verse says, Tattenu kambansu samikshimano bhunjani vanmakritam vipakam hridvag vapur bhir vidadhan namaste jivaita jo mukti pade sadaya. That in spite of our troubles, we do have troubles. I mean, let's face it, we come from a very seedy background. All of us, almost all of us. Our background is very unusual in Vedic terms, somewhat subhuman. And therefore we have so much anxiety and troubles in Kali Yuga to boot. So if we see all of our troubles as Krishna's mercy, see it very clearly, Susamikshimana means we see it very clearly that this is Krishna's mercy. And within our heart, with our voice, with our body, we continue to bow down to the Lord. Not that I become bitter, I become frustrated, what's the use, throw in the towel, I got a bad shake, I don't like what they did to me. If this is the way it's going to work, I didn't come to this movement to become humble. Some people take that position.
I didn't want to be humiliated.
Humbleated. Some people take that position. Basically what they're saying is, I didn't take to a spiritual movement to have to become tolerant. I didn't join a spiritual movement to have to be humble and perform austerities. Isn't it?
But
I mean, you think about it, that's what they're actually saying.
therein lies the dilemma of the conditioned soul, because he's simultaneously attracted to Krishna and still envious of him.
That envy means that I can't, because people can't admit they deserve the suffering. That's actually our problem. We are so proud that we think, no one can do that to me.
I don't deserve it.
Yes, I don't do that, because I'm such a nice person. So we're too proud. We just won't take it. Just like Prabhupada said, once told the story of a man fighting over the scissors and the knife. You know that story? The scissors man down to the last second, he was in the water, put his hand above the water. It's already dying, he wouldn't give up. So this into the valley of death. Point is that we're too proud. We resent the fact that someone, would punish us in this way. We resent it. Become bitter, angry, frustrated. So all these, the problem of evil, all these philosophical, moral, metaphysical, theological dilemmas can all be solved if one just isn't so damn proud. Just be a little humble. Just admit, yeah, okay, I'm a jerk. So I deserve it. That's all. I'm foolish. I've done so much nonsense. I've acted so. Just humility. Just one is humble. Yes, I admit that I've acted poorly, and I actually need to be rectified. That little humility will cut through all these bogus philosophical dilemmas. So, one has to be humble. One has to take the medicine. Otherwise, it's absurd to say, I didn't join a spiritual movement to have to be humble and tolerant. Because that's exactly why we joined a spiritual movement. That's exactly why we joined this movement, to become humble and tolerant. So when someone actually has this force to be humble and tolerant, they leave. Well, then why did you? Then what is spiritual life all about? What is yoga, bhakti yoga all about if it's not to become humble and tolerant? So if Krishna gives you something to be tolerant of, then you leave. That's ridiculous. It's like going to a gymnasium and they make you do exercises. I didn't come to a gymnasium to do exercises. In other words, it's absurd. It's patently absurd. So, these are spiritual exercises. Every time someone does something that enrages us or embarrasses us or discourages us, these are spiritual exercises, that's all. We have to build up our spiritual muscles. Get a good spiritual physique. So you have to do your spirit just like the karmis do their exercises, isn't it? Do all kinds of exercises. There's all kinds of unusual exercises nowadays. So whenever these troubles come our way, these are spiritual. You should think of it that way. I can't believe he just said that to me. Well, it's another spiritual exercise. Just get out your spiritual gym trunks and.
So, our position is to practice. We can't actually claim humility, but we can practice humility and depend on Krishna to actually give us humility.
Yes. Because one has to act humbly. Action speaks louder than words. In a given situation, one should act humbly. We are more concerned with justice than with pleasing Krishna. Especially in the Western countries, probably pointed this out, we have this obsession with justice. I don't care what happens, I don't care if I go to hell, I don't care what God wants, it's not fair. Isn't it? This is like a burning obsession in the Western psyche. Nothing matters. It's just not fair. I don't care. Come hell or high water, it's just not fair. So, but a devotee, he comes to the point where, who am I to talk about justice? I, who have been cheating God for the last few billion years, who have committed all kinds of atrocities and sins. So rather, I want to go back to Godhead, that's all. I'm not so concerned. It's just like, for example, let's say you're trapped somewhere and you're trying to get out. You just want to get out. You just want to get out. Let's say you're trapped in some obscure little despotic realm, and there's some crazy little government down there, and they've trapped you, but they won't let you get out, and you're arguing there desperately at the airport, trying to convince them to let you get on the plane and get out of this uncivilized land so you can get back home, and so on and so forth. So it comes to a certain point where you just be nice and just somehow or other you're not going to stay behind in that crazy country and just take your case to court and fight. You just get on the plane and leave and forget about it. So in the same way, we should just try to get out of this Maya. We should, and because ultimately Krishna has a plan, and real justice means to honor Krishna's plan. As the Christians say, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. So that desire that God's will be done, Krishna has a plan, Krishna's in charge, Krishna knows what he's doing, so let's just wait and see what Krishna's trying to do. So in all circumstances, a devotee is very confident that Krishna knows what he's doing. Just like if you have a good pilot, you're in a plane, and even if there's bad weather or something unusual, you just know the pilot is, highly trained, and he knows more than anyone else, and you just have to go with the pilot.
It's a very good example of how people every day of their lives, every day, people are getting into these huge machines, and all they hear is this voice, this disembodied voice coming over the speaker saying, good afternoon, welcome to our flight, we're now doing this, we're now... They don't know that actually there's a person there or not.
Maybe there's no one up there.
Then,
It's just a
they
robot.
don't see, they hear something,
Yes.
and they take it on faith that there's a person there.
Yes, and they actually are willing to go up, 30,000, 40,000 feet up in the air, hoping that...
Tube that could just burst apart at any
Yes, hoping they put the screws in right, that the guy who puts the gas in the plane wasn't on LSD, and the pilot's not drunk or crazy or suicidal. Or all three of these.
But then people demand that we show God, that we prove that God exists.
Prabhupada writes a very interesting purport about that. He says that one has to learn how to see God even in natural things. That you can see Krishna there. God, you can see God if you want to see God.